Hi, this is Swati. Welcome again. In this part 4 Azure Fundamental AZ-900 tutorial, we are going to look Azure Services, Azure Support and Pricing. Let's get started. Let's understand cloud concept. So your company decided to migrate its application and data to Microsoft Azure. You are aware that cloud computation will save your company time and money by migrating from your existing on-premise physical hardware to cloud solution. You only need to pay for the resources and company time that you use. So cloud will save your data, the application you will create. So Azure will improve that site availability. We will look all this term, scalability, and make your deployment process faster. So now application team want to run in a hybrid configuration. We will also look what is hybrid configuration, which is a combination of public and private, where part of their application run on premise and rest of the application run in the cloud. Let's understand the fundamental concept of cloud computing services. So what we mean by cloud computing services, it is the delivery of computing services, server, storage, database, networking, software, analytics, intelligence, and even more. All these services will be delivered over internet. That's what the cloud is. So now because of delivery on the cloud, this allow us to deliver solution more faster in an innovative style and also to be more flexible. You only need to pay for the services you use in cloud computing. There will be no capital investment, and this will help you lower your total operating cost for your entire infrastructure. It also allows you to efficiently scale your business as the need changes. We can also have a quick view what is data center. So hosting the number of application, how many application you are going to host and managed by the cloud provider, that will be taken care data center, which we are going to see in the upcoming fourth slide. The types of cloud services are on-premises, IaaS, that is infrastructure as a service, PaaS, that is platform as a service, SaaS, that is software as a service. So these are the cloud services wherein on-premise, that is your private cloud, and here you are going to manage all the things like data and access, application, runtime, operating system, virtual machine, compute, networking, and storage. While in using IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, few things you manage and remaining cloud provider will manage. Like in infrastructure as a service, so in there what you are going to manage, that is your data and access, application, runtime, operating system, and virtual machine, that you are going to manage. And remaining what cloud provider will manage, that is your compute, networking, and storage, right? So in platform as a service, what cloud provider will manage, they will manage the runtime, operating system, virtual machine, compute, networking, and storage. And you are going to manage data and access and application. Again, in software as a service, you only need to manage data and access, and cloud provider will manage your application, your runtime, operating system, virtual machine, compute, network, and storage. So In and Azure function will be called as a serverless, where sometimes we also use PaaS. So what is infrastructure as a service? Where you are having the shared responsibility, the most flexible cloud service this is, and you configure and manage the hardware for your application. For internet based access to storage and computing power, IaaS is most flexible category of cloud services. It aims to give you complete control over hardware that run your application instead of buying the hardware with IaaS you rent it. So there will be no capital expenditure, user have no upfront cost, agility, the accessible and deprovisioned whatever needed, management, the shared responsibility model applies and the user manage and maintain the services, cloud provider only manage for the infrastructure. It is the consumption based model, that is your operational expenditure, and you will pay as you go. So the flexibility, IaaS is, as we discussed, like most flexible as you have control on the configure and manage the hardware running to your application. Now, when you are going with the platform as a service, so in platform as a service, it is the uses the Azure function, that is your serverless, and it don't have to bother for the operating system because this is going to taken care by the cloud provider. It focus on the application development, and platform manage is handled by the cloud provider. So PaaS give developer the tool to build and host the web application. There will be no capital expenditure, and it is same agility, that PaaS is more agile than IaaS, and user don't need to configure a server for the running application, and consumption based model, and the skill, that there will be no deep technical skill are required in deploying, and security, high availability will be there, application life cycle will be faster, and the productivity and the application development will be very smoother. There are few disadvantage also, because you will be having some limitation while using the PaaS platform, and it best suited for the workload. When coming on the SaaS, that is software as a service, so one version of application used for all the customer, and it is constantly hosted and managed software for the end user. It is licensed through a monthly and annually subscription, and user connect to use the cloud based app over internet, and SaaS provide the same benefit as IaaS. Like the example of SaaS, software as a service, Microsoft Office 365, emails, Outlook, calendars, and for web based application. Here, yeah, you can say some disadvantage, that SaaS has some limitation, but you can pay as you go, that is a pricing model, and user pay for the software they use on the subscription model, and there will be a flexibility on that. A PaaS solution does not provide access to operating system. Azure Web App Services provide an environment for you to host your web application. So web page apps are hosted on virtual machine running IaaS. However, you have no direct access to virtual machine, the operating system or IaaS. A PaaS solution is that which hosts web application in Azure, does provide the ability to scale the platform automatically. So this is known as auto scaling, and the web apps are hosted on virtual machine running IaaS. So your PaaS app provide a framework that developer can build upon to develop or customize cloud-based application. Fast development tool can cut the time to take to code new apps with the pre-coded application component built into the platform, such as workflow, directory, services, uh, security features, search, and so on. When we are looking into the SaaS, then when you are implementing a software as a service, you are responsible for configuring the SaaS solution. Everything else is managed by the cloud provider. So SaaS requires the least amount of management. The cloud provider is responsible for managing everything, and the end user just use the software. So SaaS allow user to connect to and use cloud-based application over the internet. You have email, calendaring, and office tools, right? So SaaS provide a complete solution with you purchase on pay as you go basis from a cloud service provider. You rent use of an app for your organization and your user connect to it over the internet. Usually with a web browser, all of the underlying infrastructure, middleware app solution and app data are located in the service provider data center. The service provider manages the hardware and software, and with the appropriate service agreement will ensure the availability and the security of the app and your data as well. Overlapping with PaaS, serverless computing focuses on building app functionality without spending time continually managing the server and infrastructure required to do. The cloud provider handles the setup, capacity planning, and server management, and serverless architecture are highly scalable and event driven, only using resources when a specific function and or the trigger occur. Virtual machine. So infrastructure as a service, IaaS, is also called hardware as a service when we go with the pay as you go model, right? And rehosting, we have seen in the previous slide, that lift and shift. So it is the strategy for migrating a workload to the cloud without redesigning the application and making the any code changes. We are doing this rehosting. This virtual machine are the IaaS. So you're virtualizing the hardware. So IaaS is also HAS, hardware as a service, and virtual machine are the IaaS, where the virtualize the hardware, where the container virtualize the operating system, that is your PaaS, right? So the app services is platform as a service. So your virtual machine will be your hardware as a service, that is infrastructure as a service. And how it work, the virtual machine, it is as similar as you are using one computer you are using. Within your computer virtually you are using the another computer, that is your hardware infrastructure as a service. And in that, what operating system you are using, that is your platform as a service, PaaS, right? That is the app service PaaS you are using in the virtual machine. So what is virtual machine? In computing, a virtual machine is the virtualization emulation of a computer system. So the virtual machine are based on computer architecture and provide functionality of the physical computer, and their implementation may involve specialized hardware, software, or a combination. So a virtual machine, the VM, is a compute resources that uses software instead of physical computer to run program and deploy the application. So the Hyper-V or the VMware to create the virtual machine on the physical server. works, right? So now the VM on Azure, virtual machine in Azure, is we don't have to worry about the physical server. So the underlying physical infrastructure is completely managed by the Azure platform. So you can see in this diagram, and you can relate this thing, that within a computer you are having a VM which is like your physical HAS, and you're using the operating, you are doing that thing, and you are using the PAS, that is your Azure App Services, right? So we are using this virtual machine, and whatever space it is required to build or deploy your application, it is taking up that scalability, that is your virtual machine scale setup. Then you are using that container and the instances, whatever you need to do the scale out, and the services that Kubernetes or the Logic app or the Azure function or the services fabric you are going to use, you are doing in the VM, right? So this virtual machine is our IaaS service on the Azure platform. So you can use this in a platform to create the VMs. So this virtual machine manage underlying the physical server. You don't need to buy or make an initial capital investment to buy the physical server or any storage. On Azure, when you create VM, you only pay for the running cost on the virtual machine. You can terminate that virtual server at any point of time or delete the virtual server when you need that. So you can host different type of workloads. You can deploy both Windows and Linux based machine using this Azure services. Okay. So now when you are deployment you are doing of your virtual machine. So when you deploy a VM on a Azure platform, it does deploy the virtual machine resources, but there are a number of other resources that get deployed along with the VMs. So your virtual network, so you will be having the OS disk. So your VM will be assigned to your virtual network, and this home page you can see, and in that it will be assigned to the disk, that is the CPU, and the operating system disk, whatever RAM and all you are using. So this is used for holding the OS level data, and you can add your own data disk onto the virtual machine. Apart from that, there is a virtual network interface card that is assigned to the virtual machine. Okay, so this your virtual machine will be having your storage, that is your disk, your RAM, your processor, your operating system, your NIC, that is your network interface card, and then this will be like a firewall, that within your VM a packet of data will be going and receiving via through NIC, network interface card. And in that also you will be having your public IP address, and you will be having your private IP address, that will be your network security group. And this firewall is used to decide what is the type of traffic that flow into the and out of the virtual machine. So where it will be going to add cost, not into the incoming data but outbound data, right? So how to deploy a window virtual machine in Azure? So when you log into your virtual machine, you create resources, and now in all resources you can go ahead and add a new resources for a virtual machine and take a subscription. So it's a pay as you go subscription. Choose a reason for that, and you can change the size by selecting the VM size. And once the deployment is complete, you will actually get the notification over here, and hosting and network done with the storage account. So this is used for the storing of the your diagnosis data, that is your public IP address, which is taken for the network security group work on our own firewall, that is your own traffic flow. And finally we have the lowest level of disk, that is disk attached to our virtual machine. So you can correlate with this diagram. And when you need to connect the Windows, how you will connect the Windows virtual machine in Azure? You need to go on to the internet, form this virtual machine. Similarly, you usually go on the other one we have just discussed and go ahead to install that application. Go ahead, host your workloads onto this virtual machine. Open this file explorer onto the window virtual machine, and on the Windows server you will be having operating system level OS level disk and the temporary storage. So the capacity will be in the C drive OS level disk and the temporary storage will be in the D drive. So what you need to do, you need to click on the new virtual machine in Azure, and which you will get from the My Resource group. Give the virtual machine name, choose the image, choose the size, and same way we are going to complete this the way we have done in the Linux system. So while doing this action, you can go to portal.azure.com. Right, we are going to see this in the next slide also. You can start with your free account, create your Azure account, go to home, compute. You can create the virtual machine, click on the create button, take the subscription, resource group, choose the reason, availability option will be there, security will be there, choose the image and the size and all. Like that you can go ahead. Right, so the container service, you will get the Azure container and the instances, where you can look for the Azure Kubernetes services, where the virtual LAN wire will be there. You will get into that IPv4 address, and you will be having the a particular unique ID, and these services, app services, you can use. So this cloud optimized strategy for migrating to the cloud by refactoring app to take advantage to the cloud native feature and the capabilities. This cloud optimize we use from the one place without doing any changes on the application, and we use from that. Now these app services are managed services for hosting web app and the mobile app like REST API. So these are the managed services hosting app we use in the uh, uh, Azure. Now the Azure Kubernetes services, that is called AKS, are managed Kubernetes services for the running containerized application. So app services will be the web application or the mobile app, that will be your app services. And Azure Kubernetes services AKS will be the containerized application service for the running containerized application. And the container instances will be the fastest and the simplest way to run the container in Azure without having a provision of any virtual machine and without having to adopt the higher level of the services. What function you are using? FAAS, FAAS, right? So function as a service that hosting environment and deploy the code. FAAS will host automatically. So it is the function as a service. When you deploy the code, automatically it will host it. And service fabric, what we are using, the distributed system platform run, that the Azure and on-premise and the virtual machine deploy and manage the VM inside on the Azure virtual network. So Microsoft Azure is an example of this public cloud provider, and Azure is available on all these you have the 60 region over 140 countries, and you can go to this doc.microsoft.com and you can have the detailed description on all these, right? So overall, virtual machine are IaaS, and virtual machine virtualize the hardware, whereas the container virtualize is the OS, that is PaaS. So app services is the platform as a service, PaaS, of that is offering by the virtual machine. And virtual machine scale sets are an Azure compute resources that you can use to deploy and manage a set of identical VMs. The Azure function will be are identical when you are concerned only about the code running your service and not on the underlying platform or infrastructure. So that is your Azure function, whatever you are concentrating on the running part. And the container will be your operating system, that will refer to that, and the host environment that it run the container. Right? So the task of automatically managing and interacting with a large number of container is called orchestration. And your AKS, that is Azure Kubernetes Services, is a complete orchestration service for container with a distributed architecture and large volume of the container where the task is automatically managed and interacting. So your orchestration is the task of the automating and managing a large number of container and how they interact. Your firewall is your FAS, that is your which will be a managed services offered by the Microsoft, and the server access and the IP address and the granted IP address which will be allowed and the to the application while hosting. So this you can go ahead and use the services as requested. So your FAS is firewall as a service. So here you can go ahead and use this service whenever it is required. It is chargeable and unrestricted, and it is having the high availability. So you can will be having the monitoring and logging when you use firewall. And Microsoft will provide this service, that is your DOOS, that is your protection, which we are going to see in the upcoming part 3. And we will see how this DOS protection will work as a service, help from the attack over the internet. It is going to be the paid service and save the resources from the larger attack. Let's understand when two virtual machine using of same size. So could we have a different disk configuration? Yes, because when you are using a two virtual machine of the same size, then also the disk configuration will be it might have a different, and therefore the monthly cost will also get differ. So when a Azure virtual machine is stopped, and you don't have to pay for that virtual machine, but however you still need to pay for the storage cost associated to that virtual machine. There are other storage costs also associated with virtual machine, like storage for diagnosis data or virtual machine backups. So we need to look into that, and accordingly we need to pay. It is pay as you go model. Organize Azure resources effectively. How to do that? So when we work on the management level and the hierarchy, so we organize the cloud-based resource to secure, manage and track costs related to the workload. This provides balancing workload, and Azure provide the 4 level of management: the management group, subscription, resource group and resources. So what is the relationship between these levels? Management group, subscription, resource group, and the resources. So management group help you manage access, policy, and compliance for multiple subscription. All subscription in a management group automatically inherited the condition applied to the management group. Subscription are logically associated user account with the resources they create, and each subscription has limit or quotas on the amount of resources it can create and use. Organization can use subscription to manage cost and the resources created by users, team, or the project. Resource group are logical container where you can deploy and manage Azure resources like web app, database, and the storage account. And last level resources are instances of services that you can create like virtual machine, storage, or SQL database. When we apply this management setting like policies and Azure role-based access control on any level, this management level determines how widely the setting is applied. So lower level inherited setting from the higher level. Usually it makes sense to apply critical setting at higher level and project specific requirement at lower level. It is easy to manage a few subscription independently. When we work with the people, then the role on the organization, it actually important for the compliance strategy, that is security and compliance, IT administration, enterprise architecture, networking, finance, and procurement. So these are the management structure and management group which we go ahead. So to create a management group, subscription resource group, sign into the Azure portal. Then to create a management group, you can choose the multiple subscription, click on the create button, create a subscription, go to the subscription and add from there, create a resource group that hold resources and share the permission and policies. So you need to go to create resource group option, create a resource group, take subscription, enter the name of the resource group, select the reason, select review, and then create. That is, then it will be done. You can more explore in the doc.microsoft.com. VNet peering, virtual network peering. So virtual network peering enable you to seamlessly connect two or more virtual network in Azure. The virtual network appear as one for connectivity purpose. The traffic between virtual machine in peered virtual network uses the Microsoft backbone infrastructure. Like traffic between virtual machine in the same network, traffic is routed through Microsoft private network. So Azure support the uh, types of the peering, that is virtual network peering and global virtual network peering. What is virtual network peering? That is connect virtual network within the same Azure region, and global virtual network peering is connecting virtual network across Azure region. So the benefit of using virtual network peering, whether local or global, include that a low latency, high bandwidth connection between the resources in a different virtual network, and the ability for resources in one virtual network to communicate with resources in a different virtual network. The ability to transfer data between virtual network across Azure subscription and Azure Active Directory tenant, deployment model, and the Azure region. So these are the benefit on that. The other benefit are that the ability to peer virtual network created through the Azure Resource Manager. The ability to peer a virtual network created through Azure Manager to one created through the classic deployment model, and no downtime of the resources in either virtual network when creating the peering or after the peering is created. What do you mean by resource manager? Azure Resource Manager is the deployment and management service for Azure. So it provides a management layer that enable you to create, update and delete resources in your Azure account. You use management feature like access control, logs and tags to secure and organize your resources after deployment. So you can go with this concept of ARM template, that is your Azure Resource Management, where you can go with doc.microsoft.com and have this view. So there will be a consistent management layer where you have your Azure Resource Manager, which will be get connected, and it will be get your data store, your web app, your virtual machine, your service management, any other services, and it will get connected with the Azure Portal, Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI and REST client. That comes under your Azure Resource Manager, and your PowerShell and CLI will be SDK, and Azure Resource Management will get authentication. So this will handle the Azure request. How? When a user send a request from any of the Azure tool, that is API or SDK, Resource Manager receive the request, it authenticate and authorize the request, and then Resource Manager send the request to the Azure services, which take the requested action. Because all requests are handled through same API, so the consistent result and capabilities will take place on a different tool. All these capabilities are available on the portal, and through PowerShell and Azure CLI, REST API and Client SDK, this functionality will release through the portal, and from the initial days of the release. So we can go through the terminologies for the exam purpose, like resource, resource group, resource provider, what all these. So resource, a manageable item that is available through Azure, and a virtual machine, storage account like web app, database and the virtual network are the example of resources. Resource group, subscription, management group and tags are also example of resources. Now resource group, what is it is exactly? It will act as a container that hold the related resource of the Azure solution. So the resource, when the resource group will come, subscription will come, management group will come, it will be a resource. And when the container will come, which will hold the Azure solution, that will be your resource group. So all resources belong to the resource group, based which we make sense to your organization is the resource group. And who is the resource provider? That a service that supply Azure resource, like a common resource provider is Microsoft.compute. So this is one service which supply the virtual machine resource. So Microsoft.storage is another common resource provider. So like this, we have multiple terminologies which will be important for the exam perspective. Now ARM template, that is your a JavaScript object notion, that is your JSON file that define one or more resources to deploy in a resource group, subscription, management group or the tenant, and the template can use to deploy these resources consistently and repeatedly, that is your ARM template. And a file for declaring for our the deploying Azure resources, that language is bicep file. And bicep is a language actually that has been designed designed to provide the best authoring experience for infrastructure as a code solution in Azure. Now, coming on the topic, what is the VNet peering? What we have already seen, that the connectivity, what all things will be there. The connectivity will be there, service chaining will be there, gateway and on-premise connectivity will be there. So how it works? The connectivity will be the network latency between the virtual machine is peered virtual network in the same region is the same as the latency within the single virtual network. Okay, and the service chaining that enable you to direct traffic from one virtual network to other virtual gateway in a peered network through a user defined route. And the gateway, so and on-premise connectivity will be each virtual network including the peered virtual network can have its own gateway. So a virtual network can use the gateway to connect on-premise network, and you can configure the virtual network to virtual network connection by using the gateway. This is your peered virtual network. And you can also troubleshoot if any issue will become arise in virtual network peering and the constraint will come up. You can work on that, like resource in one virtual network can't communicate with the front-end IP address of the basic internal load balancer. Then some services will be used the basic load balancer don't work with the global virtual network peering. So in that thing you need permission, and you can work with that to resolve this VNet peering with your gateway, service chaining and the connectivity. Azure Express Route. So we create a private connection between Azure data center and infrastructure on your environment. So create a site-to-site VPN connection in the Azure portal. So how it goes, that Azure VPN gateway provide a cross premises connectivity between the customer premises and Azure. So it will show you this diagram, that how Azure portal to create a site-to-site VPN gateway connection from your own premise network to VNet. So you can also create do this configuration by using Azure CLI and Azure PowerShell. And what you need to do, you need to create a virtual network. So how you will create a virtual network? By using resource group. You will give the name, select the region, give the IPv4 address space, subnet name, and then subnet address, the link you need to provide. You can go to sign in to Azure portal, and then you can search the resource services and type virtual network, and or you can also get from the marketplace, and then you need to create this virtual network. Now when we can use an availability set, when you have a prediction workload that you want to protect against the downtime. In a simple language, if you don't know your solution can run into a single virtual machine, and you would create two virtual machines in an availability set to ensure that at least one virtual machine is running at all the time, and the load balancer to route a traffic to the active VM. So we can use scale set when the workload on your solution changes or is it is unpredictable. then the solution is that normally the work we are using on the one virtual machine, but you may need up the other virtual machine which work under on a heavy demand, right? So you would use a scale set to ensure that your solution quickly scale to the demand, and scale set provision your virtual machine instances so that when they need to scale out, so when you need to scale out, it's just a matter of starting them and then wait for the Azure to actually create this VM. The fault and update domains are automatically assigned when you place two or more virtual machine in a availability set. This will be taken care. When you create your virtual machine, just provide the name and availability set to which they should be assigned, and Azure will take care of the rest. So the three fault domain uh, uh, and the update domain, whatever you have set, that will be taken care. Now this actually how it works on the Azure Express route, and from the one domain to other domain, when you are using one virtual machine or a other virtual machine, and you are using the Azure DNS or a Azure load balancer, and you are accordingly using the VM scale set and getting from the storage account, and manage disk is the taking care on that. What do you mean by Azure load balancer? So load balancing is like distributing load across the group of the backend resources or the server. So Azure load balancer operate at four layer open system, that is your OSI model. So it is a single point of contact for the client, and load balancer distribute inbound flow that arrive to the load balance front end to the backend pool instance, and these flow are according to configured load balancing rule and health props. The backend pool instances can be Azure virtual machine or instances in a virtual machine scale set. More into the next section.
Azure Support. Azure has more than 90 compliance certification. That is a trust center that includes over 50 specific to global region and countries. So we have US, European Union, Germany, Japan, the United Kingdom, India, and China. You can view a list of compliance certification in the trust center. You can go on Google and if you type, you will get it. And there you will also get to know that Azure government is a cloud environment and that has built to meet the compliance and security requirement for US government entity and the US government contractor that are helping to develop a cloud solution. So Azure government is a sovereign cloud. It's a physical instance of the Azure that is dedicated to US government workloads only, and it is built exclusively for government agency and their solution provider. Other than that, the Azure support we have. So you have the two when you open your new Azure free account, the $200 credit subscription you will get. So as an Azure free account has a spending limit, that is your the currency is 200 USD and 150 GBP. The Azure free account, that is 5 gigabyte blob storage limit and 5 GB file storage limit. So Azure free account has this limit of 10 web application, mobile app or the API app. What you want to take it ahead. Other than that, the help and support, when you click, you will get that service health. So from Azure Service Health, an administrator can view the health of all the services deployed to the Azure environment, and all the other services are available in help plus support. You can see in the snapshot. So Azure Service Health, it's an administrator that can create a rule. Uh, Here you can see, and it can give you the alert if Azure Service Health fails any point of time. So you have other support plans, so you can definitely go and look into that. So you will have Azure Advisor that will recommend your reliability, high availability, security, performance, cost, and operational expenditure. So these are the key areas. Other than that, the first thing that you can create in the Azure, that is subscription, and you can think of that Azure subscription, Azure account when you get billed, or you when you open with your account. The subscription, that is the agreement with the Microsoft to use one or more Microsoft Cloud platform or services, which change based on either per use license fee or on cloud-based resources consumption. So we can you can also look the trial subscription, but the subscription expire after the specific amount of time, or based on the consume charges. Go to Google, type Visual Studio Code. You can download freely. Once you download, then you can also add this in subscription area, and then you can create the directory. So in your Azure home page, you need to go to Active Directory. You can go to Manage Tenant, create your tenant, give the name, and click on the Create button. Once you click on that, then you need to go to the once you added a tenant, then you need to go to subscription, and there, as per your account, you can choose the subscription, uh, create directory, and rename it, tag it, the directory what you want to do it, what the tenant, new tenant you have created, and your new directory will get created. If you click on the name of your logo, which you can see on the top right hand side, there you can choose and switch the directory as well. So we will just have a demo in the next slide, and based on that, once you are set up with your free account, you can explore as much as you can. So we will log into portal.azure.com. You can Google it. You need to go to this URL, portal.azure.com, sign in, and you will get your home page. So here, once you start with this, then you will get something with your free account. Start with the Azure free trial, that is $200 free credit you will get by Microsoft, and for 12 months you can use the free services. There will be a few services that will be paid, and you need to pay as per the uses. Once you click here, once you start with that, then you need to go with the sign up process, and this page will come up. You need to fill all your details, and once you give all your details here, mainly your phone number, your first name, last name, your address line, your credit card, postal details. Once you click on that, and then you will be set up with your account, right? So once you have done with that, then you will get these services. You can create the resources by clicking here, create a resource. You can create a virtual machine. You first, how you will start, you will go to Active Directory, right? So you can search here. If you need to search here in this search bar, you can search Azure Active Directory. You need to go here, and you need to create a tenant. So when you come here, there is some error, but no worries on that. Once you come here, you need to go to the manage tenants. Okay, once you come here, you need to create a new tenant.
Once you are done with that, because once you buy the subscription it is going to come, once this will come, then you need to go with the subscription and you need to add there. Once you go with the subscription, then here you can add the subscription and you can provide tag with the directory and your new directory will get created. So there you need to explore, you can explore with that. And as we have seen, you can go with the different resources in this account. If you go with the Azure Reserve instance, so you will get some reduced Azure cost, and that will be a 1 or 3 year term for a virtual machine in exchange of discount up to 72% compared to pay as you go. So if you are going with the capital expenditure and you are looking for the reserve instance, then you are paying the amount upfront, and that will be cost you less than pay as you go. So once you explore more into that, accordingly you can take a subscription based on your uses, and you can definitely use this as a site. Have a wonderful, all the best for your exam, and this will definitely help you in preparing in your exam, certification exam Azure 900. And in my last slide I have given the links, so that is very important. You should go with the doc.microsoft.com, because that link you should read line by line, and once you are going to cover that site, doc.microsoft.com, surely you are going to win the Azure 900 certification. Thank you so much guys for watching these videos. Do check these references link. Please like and subscribe the channel, and I'll see you very soon.